catch up with the lost time. So we'll give you 12 minutes, and then we'll have about 3 minutes through which we'll interact with you through question and comments. Thank you, members, and welcome to the presentations. Welcome to this session. Thank you.
The chairman, Professor Gendi, and Dr. Donde, the rapporteur, and my academic colleagues, good morning. I'm pleased to be here today. My name is Jacob Heudondiko. Just a moment. Yes, thank you so much for the assistance. So, like I said, my name is Jacob Heudondiko, and my co-authors for this presentation basically Dr. Amon Karanja, Dr. Humphreys Ubulinji, and Professor Kennedy Ondimu. I'd like to present on the nature of drought and its influence on cereal yields in Makueni County. Now, this basically is part of a wider project that we're undertaking, and it's also an area of interest, as you've seen in the morning session. And yes, thank you. And this study is actually about the influence of drought and the influence of drought on cereal production. We focused on 3 key cereals being produced in Makueni County, and the first one being sorghum, millet, and maize. We looked at the adaptable varieties, especially for maize, that are actually doing well in arid, semi-arid conditions, basically the lowlands of Makueni County. And we established that there are a number of fluctuations or a fluctuating trend of drought that has been reported globally. This actually necessitated the study because we found out that being the fluctuations and the patterns that were repetitive, the severity and magnitude of drought actually impacts on cereal production. And when that happens, the challenge that we have, especially with the rapid population increase, it makes it a key area of concern because of food insecurity that is experienced almost annually in this region. And drought, to bring you to the background, is actually a phenomenon or a period, an elongated period of limited precipitation received in a given region, and the limited precipitation is statistically below the seasonal or annual means of rainfall received in that year. So that means that different regions can experience droughts at different times. Then 52 global mega droughts were actually experienced at a global level, that is in the last 6 decades. And Africa experienced frequent droughts. Mostly, these droughts are actually repetitively happening within almost every single decade. And we also found out that some of these droughts were severe. And then we also established that if East Africa is one of the regions that is completely vulnerable to the impacts of drought, that experience 10 different severe droughts. Then in Kenya, we also established that from 1900, every single decade has experienced drought. And that actually is a key concern, especially to the government, county government, national government, and the stakeholders in the mostly agro-based regions. Then these severe droughts that have been experienced have been, in fact, impacting on the cereals that we've chosen for this study. Now, the reason as to why we chose to focus on these three key cereals is because sorghum and millet are actually drought tolerant, and where they are basically autonomously adapting to those drought conditions. But at the same time, the two cereals are actually C4 photosynthetic in nature, where there is carbon fixation in the process. But at the same time, they can survive in saline conditions, limited nutrient conditions, and at the same time, they are staple cereals in these regions. For the case of maize, it's a popular crop that is basically being produced almost in Kenya, every region of Kenya. But in this region, we pay attention to the varieties that do well in Kenya. The study was conducted in Makueni County, which is actually 200 kilometers southeast of Nairobi, and we focused on the study sites including Kibwezi East, Kibwezi West, Kilome, and Makueni Sub-County. And it's good to note that those counties mostly, apart from Kilome and Makueni sub-counties, the rest are lowlands. Then the results of this study, we established a fluctuating pattern of rainfall from 1990 to 2000. As you can see, in the year 2000, in the year 1998, there was significant rainfall that was experienced, and that coincided with the El Nino of 1998. But if you also look at the diagram, you can see that in 2000, there was significant reduction in amount of rainfall. And that actually precipitated the development of moderate droughts in this region. We also experienced the same in 2004, 2005, where there was a multi-year drought experienced in that region, and that was a severe drought. The characteristics of the drought that we established are that 18 episodes of near normal droughts were experienced just within that period, the 3-decade period under study. 2 mild droughts were experienced, 1 episode of moderate drought, and we also experienced severe droughts that was a multi-year, 2004 and 2005. Then, as you can see on the diagram, you'll realize that there is a correlation between the amount of rainfall experienced and the drought patterns. If I may take you back to, you can actually see in 1998, when we experienced high rainfall. Sir, thanks. When we experienced high rainfall, we also experienced the same. And if you look at 2004, 2005, you can see the drought, the severe droughts that was experienced. The trends, there was significant fluctuation in sorghum, and there was gradual increase in sorghum production between 2017 and 2020 because of the increased amounts of rainfall. Then we also had a significant decline in sorghum production because of the significant reduction, which actually is shown by a sharp decline in rainfall patterns. Then we also, the study also found out that the maize yields were significant, especially with the increase in rainfall, and which basically was noted from 2014 to 2016 because of increased amounts of rainfall. We can see the pattern on the diagram. From the production was actually fluctuating consistently for the 3 cereals. But from 2014, there was significant increase in the amount of production because of increased amounts of rainfall. And these rainfalls, you can also see from 2016, the level of fluctuations was recorded. But that was also correlating with the cereal production levels. The correlation, like I've said, was actually positive and significant for the 3 cereals. Then the effect of drought on cereal production, we established that the drought actually significantly affects cereal production in this region, like I've mentioned. And the study established that 43% of all the farmers, the smallholder farmers, we focused on that, actually produce 1 to 10 bags of sorghum. And this is, the 90 kg bags annually, which is actually very little, considering the demand for the same. We found that the most popular crop is maize, which actually 60% of the farmers produce between 1 to 10 bags annually. Now, if you look at that table, you'll find the low amount of cereal production, where for the case of sorghum, it's only 1% of the entire population that is actually, which was actually considered for this study, producing above 70 bags of cereal. And the same happened to maize. And the effect of drought is also experienced where the farmers who are actually made vulnerable and were actually surveyed using, surveyed for this, we established 91.1% recorded or observed, mostly observed, that rainfall, that drought significantly affects cereal production. And it's also worth it to note that there was increase in amounts of yields, especially with droughts for some regions, which is actually increased by 4%. Now that means that this can actually be associated with some of the regions that were under study, but were actually within the same agroecological conditions, but they were high altitude regions receiving comparatively high amounts of rainfall. But at the same time, potentially these regions could have having quality soils, and at the same time practicing advanced technological or agricultural agrarian techniques. So ladies and gentlemen, with those, I would like to thank you for listening to me and be blessed. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ndiko, for that insightful presentation. I'm guided by the conference secretariat that we will have 2 presentations, and once they are done, then those 2 will be subjected to an interactive session. So, Mr. Ndiko, you will wait until the next presenter finishes, and then we will engage you in a discussion. Thank you. The second one is by Lagat. No, not Lagat, but Mabururu. I don't know whether he's online. Is this individual presenter online?
He's online.
He's online. So let's say, do you have his presentation, Alex? Sorry? Sorry? He will share. Okay, you will give him the rights, isn't it? Okay, so please, you will be allowed or you will be granted rights to to share, and I will allow the secretariat to do that as they end this one and allow you to make your presentation. You will have 10 minutes, a max of 12 to finish, and then thereafter the audience will allow you to make your remarks in terms of engagement. So, Mr. Mabururu, the ground is, or the floor is yours, and proceed.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I am Cosmas Nowen. Yeah, I'm presenting a paper that we authored together with Professor Michael Mabururu, at Rongo University. So in this case, I'm presenting a paper on the issue about harnessing data-driven decisions, the ethical dimension of climate change, and the future generation. So from the earlier morning debate on the issue about climate change, we noticed that there is a huge gap when it comes to the aspect about availability of data and the nature of data that we can use to make climate-related decisions. So, and when we look at the revolution, when the revolution of the issues of climate change is mostly within the realm of ethical issues. And so, in that case, we have to come up with frameworks so that we can link the issues of climate change with ethical issues. So in this case, one may not believe if the whole human society operates on the knowledge of the future, particularly about weather. And that is the reason why we are on daily process or in any subsequent policy issues, we have visions. Because in this case, we are coming up with frameworks for the aspect about the future. So, and in this case, traditionally, it was possible to make climate-related decisions, unlike the modern days, whereby at the past the nature was intact, and we call the nature was natural, unlike the modern days where there is a lot of interference when it comes to issues of weather. So the issue about global warming, which is raising a controversial scientific issue in the current 21st century, whereby in this case it matters about the adoption of mechanization, the adoption of the Western industrial issues, whereby now we are seeing that at the end of it, even if we are getting the economic gain at the end of it, the sustainability that is supposed to go hand in hand is not sustainable at all. So we have increase in terms of carbon emission from the industries, increase on carbon emission from mobility, vehicles, and so on and so forth. So in that case, it's our contention that a man-made climate change is not a disease of the atmosphere, but a symptom of the disturbed balance, indicating that something is going wrong without the behavior of humankind, which is dictated by egocentric attitudes, reason based on economic benefit at the expense of other human beings. So in this case, we can link a lot of climate change issues to human-related activities, whereby in this case, it's not enough to say that climate change, which is human-made, it's not enough to say that it is a disease of the atmosphere. But in this case, it's just a symptom that is showing that there is a disturb in terms of balance, in terms of gaining and the mutual benefits. So in this case, when we look on the philosophical aspect, on the ethical dimension, Ian Popper asserts there is the trend of the production of greenhouse gas to continue beyond 100 years may make it environmental unfriendly to human being application. So in this case, the ethical aspects when we are trying to adopt the Western mechanization without taking into consideration the ethical implications towards the environment, then at the end of it, we would end up trying to tackle economic gain, but we forget about our nature. So now the entire debate revolves in two major central questions, whereby the first question is it possible to detect environmental issues from ethical or moral concerns? How can the natural balance in the interrelationship between climate and man be maintained? So those are the two major issues, the two major critical questions. If we get answers to them, then at the end of it, we will say we have attained sustainability, not only to economical, but also when it comes to visibility to the climate. So on the protection of the environment for the future generation, so the planet is a commonwealth for the present and the future. So it's the responsibility of us in the present to protect the nature, to protect the climate, so enjoy the climate or can equally enjoy the world which we call a commonwealth for both of us. So the challenges of climate change, so we have the issues of environmental degradation, whereby human beings act irresponsibly towards the environment. And in this case, we can link it to like the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine, the Palestinian and the Israelites. So we can see there's a lot of, other than these states getting gain in terms of geopolitical issues, but the impact that we are getting towards the climate is beyond control. So the environmental issues, we can see urbanization plays a major role when we are talking about climate issues, mining issues, industrialization and exploration. Those are some of the major challenges that we face in Kenya, whereby we have environmental pollution, deforestation, and so forth. So the impact of pollution on the ecosystem, we have pollution effect on the ecosystem, whereby pollution disrupts ecosystem, harming planet and animal life, whereby now the toxic gases that are being emitted from the industries are now causing imbalance in the ecosystem. So in that case, the mitigation measures that are supposed to be adopted is the implementation of strict regulation to minimize emission and protect the ecosystem for the commonwealth of the environment. So, and the second major impact of pollution to the ecosystem is unsustainable economical independence, whereby the cost for mitigation is relatively high than the economic globalization benefit. So out of the adoption of all the industrial capabilities, we find that the cost that the profit that we are getting out of the globalization issue or the economic benefit are not in tandem with the cost that we need to mitigate the climatic impact. So the mitigation behind that, we should look on a way, or we develop a framework of reverting to indigenous sustainable economic activities. So now on the issue about adopting of data-driven solutions for climate change. So in this case, the data-driven technologies aid in designing mitigation measures for climate change intelligence. So in this case, the issue about climate change intelligence is we are talking about making informed decisions out of available data and having the capability to predict or having the capacity to mitigate climate change impact. Some of the data-driven technologies that need to be harnessed are autonomous systems issues, the GIS, machine learning, blockchain, and big data analytics. So in that case, the pickup there is a framework on the issue about adopting the data-driven techniques for making informed climate change decisions, whereby you can see, you can collect the data about information about the environment, the issue about the personal and the community value of the globalization issues. What value does it have to the personal issue and to the community as well? And now, what are some of the intricacies that we need to take in so that at the end of it we can have informed decisions? So now utilizing machine learning for climate change solutions. So in the first instance is whereby we are using machine learning for environmental solutions, whereby we leverage machine learning for environmental data analysis, and we optimize machine learning algorithm for climate prediction, and in the innovation approaches,
Professor,
implementing machine learning.
Professor,
Yes,
your time is up. We are only giving you 2 more minutes, please, to wind up. 2 more minutes, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So on that case, on the think about implementation of machine learning for adaptive climate change strategies, and so on and so forth. So now on the ethical implications when we are talking about climate change is the whereby now we are supposed to own. We need to own the issues of climate change. We need to acknowledge that it has reached a time whereby nature is reacting back because of the way we use the nature or the way we exploit the available resources. So in that case, we have to look on how we can harness and come up with extensive policies and frameworks that will ensure that we protect the environment and there is climate change adaptation. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Professor, for that presentation that still takes us a notch higher in understanding on the need for ethical considerations, especially as we use data in attending to issues of climate change. I'd like to welcome the audience to field questions for the two presenters. And we will have 2 questions for Mr. Ndiko, the first presenter, and 2 questions for Professor Ntabo, who is online. So, audience, questions. Yes, please proceed. It will be captured by the rapporteur, the question, quickly.
Yeah, thanks a lot, and thank you to the first presenter for his insightful presentation. I just said a couple of questions for him.
Please
the first one.
limit to 1 for him, and then we will have another person asking him, and then we will have the second presenter also being, and make the questions precise because of time. Please proceed.
Thank you. So he confirmed in his presentation that droughts occur in Kenya in all the decades since 1900. So I just wanted to know which type of data he used to come up with such a conclusion and what is the accuracy of that data.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Did you say your name, please?
I'm Daniel Muindo.
Muindo,
yes.
Daniel. Thank you. Proceed. Any other person? If there isn't, we'll ask. Okay. Maxi is here. Quickly, please.
Oh, thank you very much. I am called Maxwell Raf Uchien, student of MRPP. I want to give one question to the first presenter. It is good you have shown us that with the drought there is always reduced yields or harvest, and then a very slight increase in the harvest. And now what could possibly be your policy recommendations to some of these other issues? We have actually seen it is affecting, and very soon climate change as always, and is almost taking over the world. So what could be the policy recommendation?
Thank you. Presenter number 2, questions that are fielded to him. Presenter number 2. That was the online presenter. Okay. Dr. Karanja there. Please, quick.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation, Professor Ntambo. My question is, we have nations in the world who can be classified as climate change deniers. Does it mean that they lack data, or it's out of ignorance?
Thank you. Any other person? Okay, if there isn't, I want to field a question for presenter number 2. And this one is related to what the Dr. Karanja has talked about. we are looking at ethical considerations. And the question is, who should be implementing these ethical considerations? Is it the government? Is it the individuals? Or is it some kind of organization that is out there that is supposed to make sure that these ethical considerations are adhered to? So we want to start with Mr. Ndiko. You quickly please answer those two questions, and then we will give way for Professor Ntabo to do his part.
Thank you. I'd like to, thank you for that, the two questions. I'd like to start by addressing the second one about policy recommendations. Indeed, drought is a major challenge to agricultural activities and even food production in Kenya. And that basically is one of the key causes of food insecurity. And especially in times when we have severe droughts and even moderate droughts. And like we've noted from the study, the 18 episodes of droughts are clear indication that there's need for action. Therefore, the basis for the following policy recommendations can be done. First, we need to undertake drought forecasting. Currently, there are attempts that are being made, but they are still inadequate. So it's important to improve the forecasting technologies and even capacity for such kind of forecasting. That will help in response and even adaptation and resilience to improve food production. Secondly, there is need for technological and capacity building and development for the smallholder cereal farmers in the arid and semi-arid regions. And it's good to note that 80% of Kenya is actually arid and semi-arid land, effectively experiencing deficiency of rainfall almost every rainfall season. Then, so the capacity building will actually improve the resilience of the smallholder cereal farmers. And that capacity building can be done in terms of the new varieties, the drought-adaptable varieties or drought-tolerant varieties of cereals that can actually be used in those conditions, and absorption of the forecasting information provided. And the other policy recommendation is to help improve resilience and adaptation of the farmers. That can actually be a multi-pronged approach where we can have policy development, and the policy development that is being undertaken right now is actually top-down. I would propose actually implementation of a down or a bottom-up approach where community-based adaptations and community-based practices that put the priority of the farmers first is paid attention to, so that they develop the policies, their needs, and basically this is going to help in policy formulation both at the county level and national level. Then it's important to provide fiscal support because of the challenges that are being experienced by the smallholder cereal farmers. Because one of the key things that we need to pay attention to is that the rural communities that actually are the producing in the rural areas or practicing agro-based activities are actually forming 70% of the entire Kenyan population. Effectively, it means that a large population is vulnerable. So it's important that financial support is provided both by the national government, county governments, and other stakeholders like NGOs. Then it's important, yes, please. All right, thank you. Thank you. So to question number one, on the data that is actually indicating that Kenya has actually experienced droughts from 1900 to date. Now, first of all, there's a difference between annual and decadal. Annual is every year, and decade means even in 1 year, in 1 year out of a period of 10 years. The 10-year period, we may have experienced drought in 1 year only. And that is one of the findings that was done from the past review, and these reviews are actually peer-reviewed articles or academic material. So when I was introducing this, I indicated that out of the 52 global droughts that were experienced around, a number of them are actually being experienced as salts that are mostly found in Africa. And therefore, when we say that Kenya, when we found out that from the material that Kenya has actually been experiencing this, our data that we collected within the last the data that was dependent on three decades, from 1990 to 2020, actually replicates the same, which is actually a continuous trend that needs focus. Then, on the accuracy of the data that was used to especially focus on the to make this introduction based on the drought trend, the data that we used from 1990 to 2020 is actually collected from the Kenya Meteorological Department, and therefore it is accurate. But at the same time, we used graded data for other stations, so to ensure that there is we also ran the testing for all this data and found out that it was suitable and consistent to make such conclusions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Let's clap for him. Professor Ntabo, please, you have 2 minutes to respond to those two questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I'll respond to who should be implementing the ethical issues. Is it us or the government? In that case, I will strongly say we go bottom up. We as the citizens, we need to adopt and take the responsibility of identifying what is right and distinguish the right and the wrong as much as environmental issues are concerned, and only do what is right in protecting the environment. And in that case, the debate can go back even back to the centuries when we look on the teachings, the Kantian categorical issues about acting responsibly to the environment. And from there, now, from there, because we know the government is made up by the people. If each and every person takes the responsibility to protect the environment, then at the end of it, we would have achieved a common purpose for all of us. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Prof. There were other two questions that were not captured for the first presenter, and that is Mr. Ndiko. You may not answer this one on the floor, but you can engage later. From Professor Charles Merimba, his question is, how do the three drought categories influence cereal production, and what is your recommendation? I think to some extent you have answered part of that question. The other one was by Dr. Donde. I think you raise that question later, or you want to raise it now? Okay. Yes. Okay. So for the online viewers, the question by Dr. Donde is how do the three crops compare, isn't it, under different climate regimes? Thank you. We want to welcome Rono and Tim to make their presentation, which is on social historical analysis on the nexus between environmental conservation and indigenous education among the Mau Ogiek of Kenya. And this presentation is going to be done by Dr. Miriam Chule. Dr. Karibu, you have 10 minutes.
So thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Miriam Chule, presenting a paper on social historical analysis on the nexus between environmental conservation and indigenous education among the Ogiek of Kenya. The co-authors of this paper are Thomas Rono and Ruben Madeka. Sorry, I hope technology is not escaping me. So, history has it that before formal education there was the informal education. Thank you. Before formal education there was the informal education, and every community in Kenya had their story in terms of how their education was. So the focus for this study was the Ogiek, and the first question we ask ourselves is, who are they? And we noticed that Ogiek were inhabitants in the Mau Forest, and Mau Forest has a history in Kenya because it is one of the main catchments in terms of rainfall, and a lot of interest has been on these forests in terms of its conservation and the effects towards climate change. But these Ogieks occupied this forest for quite a long time without having any degradation effects towards the forests. So we noticed that them inhabiting the forests, one, they were hunters, they were gatherers, and they had a close connection with the forests in a manner that they would make use of the resources without damaging what existed, but ensured that every time the resources were conserved as much as possible. So they had this pragmatic philosophy of sustainable environmental conservation of what existed around them, because it was their source of livelihood. That is where they hunted, that is where they got their fruits, that's where they did a bit of their farming. So how are we linking the education that was then among themselves towards conservation of the environment and the manner in which they owned the land? This indigenous education, and because I come from a background of education, it informs a lot of what we have in our formal curriculum. We have 4 categories of curriculum: the formal curriculum, the non-formal curriculum, the hidden curriculum, and the emerging curriculum. This indigenous education cuts across the hidden curriculum and the non-formal curriculum. So quite a lot of this was practiced by the Ogiek. And this education was inculcated among the youths through entrepreneurship and also apprenticeship, and we'll be looking at this quite a lot, because these young ones were taught on how to acquire certain skills, hands-on. And when you talk about hands-on, practicing in reality, on time, in space, and making use of it, then we think about the competency-based curriculum where Kenya is headed to. This was the objective of this study, looking at the interconnectedness between the 2 aspects among the said community, and we wanted to answer the 3 questions. 1, what is the background of the Ogiek and the ecology of Mau Forest Complex? What is the relationship between the land tenure, the indigenous education, and the environmental conservation aspect? How initiation and apprenticeship schemes are a reinforcing strategy for effective environmental conservation? And lastly, how was oral literature utilized as an environmental conservation learning strategy? The methodology that was employed in this study, one, the design used was the ethno-historical design. It has looking at what was and where we are in terms of this community and how it has interacted with the resources in terms of land, Mau forest. It was systematic, guided by the objectives that I've just highlighted. And a lot of inquiry was done because we really wanted to get the gist of how they have interacted with the forest without degradation, and making use of the education that they had to inform different ways of conserving the environment and utilizing resources meaningfully. A sample was drawn from the 7 sites, and 7 sites because the Ogiek occupied certain spots within the eastern and the western Mau forest, and those very spots that they occupied, to them, they prefer being associated with their own species. So those very 7 spots are where the samples were collected from, and majorly engaged the older generation, the elderly people between the ages that are indicated there, 65 to 120, because they're very resourceful, they are rich with the information that we are sourcing for. Observation schedules and interview schedules were also used to collect data, and 4 steps were followed when analyzing this data, which involved the reading, the memorizing, and understanding what the respondents are giving us, describing that data, classifying and interpreting it. Then the following were the results. Under the background of the Ogiek and the ecology of Mau Forest Complex, we noted that there were variations in the systems of production, and in this context, culture defined the nature of indigenous education. There were some of the variances between the 7 different spots where the samples were picked from. So, and each of them held onto what they believed so much. Then they believed a lot in hunting animals and also harvesting of honey. Thank you. Because for them to harvest the honey, then they needed the sources of nectar. They needed a conducive environment with a lot of water for the bees, a conducive environment to provide these resources. They claim, they believe, the Ogieks believe that they own Mau Forest Complex. That was coming out from them so passionately. Then those geographical areas that they occupied, I've mentioned them, 7 of them, they still hold very strongly to them. In terms of land tenure, the places that they occupied are demarcated by the ridges. So from one ridge to another, you have a certain group of the Ogiek, and that they believed was attached to some emotional and spiritual and also intellectual attachments towards those places that they occupied. And land ownership to them was collective. It was not individually owned, and that meant they also had collective ownership of the land, and they had collective responsibility in preserving the resources that were there. So the indigenous education cut across the aspects on what they needed to actually enhance their skills in hunting, what they needed to enhance their skills in honey harvesting, and what comes with honey harvesting, like construction of the beehives, how to erect those beehives, where to site them. So that was knowledge that was indigenous, which they made use, and it put sense in them that there's need to conserve the environment. Then, in terms of the initiation and apprenticeship and the environmental conservation, the image there indicates one of the seclusion moments when the young are under seclusion during initiation. And when they are under seclusion, they undergo a lot of training that is life skill related. And a lot of this also had information on environmental conservation. And therefore, by the time these initiates were leaving the forest after the 6 months, they had the knowledge on how to continue enhancing resource utilization and proper resource conservation along within the Mau forest. The education in this context, the indigenous education, was being offered by the elders, the parents, and everyone, remember, these were the times when a child belonged to the community. Not like today where my child is my own and you cannot point at them. You cannot, yeah? Those times, we are looking at communal responsibility in terms of educating them, in terms of instilling discipline, in terms of creating awareness in environmental conservation. When it came to what they tapped from in terms of their earnings, apprenticeship and entrepreneurship aspects, how were they related to the environment? And it's important to appreciate that the knowledge that they had in utilizing the trees that were of importance, herbal medicine, yes, construction of these beehives, weaving, making of chairs, those traditional chairs, yes, those times. We look at them as it was then, but we realize today people are going back there. Yes, we want those traditional seats because they have some prestige with them. They have some history to tell. And that is exactly what we are saying. The knowledge was important to them. And then in terms of oral literature and environmental conservation, a lot of this oral literature was majorly passed through, communicated, or training went through the use of proverbs. They had so many proverbs that had meaning in terms of daily life situations and in terms of their interaction with the environment. So the proverbs were very strong, that they would give warnings, they would give advice in terms, in line with land conservation and resource utilization. And therefore, it's important to appreciate that this education to them was gendered, yes, that each of them, each gender would be trained separately, and each of them knew their responsibility in terms of land tenure aspects and also in terms of environmental conservation. They knew the type of trees to cut and the types of trees not to cut. They knew the types of trees to get brooms from and those not to touch. So there was that kind of emotional attachment to the forest and the resources therein. Allow me to go to the conclusions. I'm told my time is up. Yes. One of the conclusions that we came up with is that there is in-depth conceptual understanding among the geeks in linking culture and the mode of ensuring sustainable utilization of environmental resources. Then every individual in that society, and this should be the same to us today, understood, whether it is written or not written, the rules that they were to follow in utilizing and managing the environment around them. This education may not have been very structured. It involved both the formal and the informal and the practices that they had to utilize to make use of their skills and make money. Then lastly, the contents and the methods of organic education were geared towards helping the learners realize their full potential in order to cope with the social and physical environment. Social and physical environment because they inhabited the forest. The forest was very harsh sometimes, so they had to develop skills to know how to deal with a lion, how to deal with an harmful snake, because that was where they lived. The recommendations, we can tap from them in terms of the skills, the competences they had in addressing climate change issues and ensuring that we conserve and utilize environmental resources appropriately. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chule, for that presentation. We want to welcome the next presenter. There is Dr. Amon Karanja, who will be making a presentation on a related subject to Dr. Chule's. This is African Indigenous Knowledge Perspectives on Climate Change Adaptations. Daktari, you are welcome. And to our online presenters, please, we are encouraging you to raise your hand up if you have a question to the presenters when we will be having the question-answer session, and the Secretariat will be able to capture those questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Good afternoon. Yeah, my presentation is on the African indigenous knowledge, perspective on climate change adaptation, and this is a case of Laikipia County. Now, my focus on actually on the Laikipia pastoralist. Basically, Laikipia is an arid and semi-arid county, and therefore, I really wanted to see what is it that was working from the African perspective that helped the Laikipia pastoralists be able to get their livelihoods and also actually live well with their neighbors, and also welcome the newcomers who will come to their area, especially during the times of scarcity within their neighborhood. So this is basically part of a wider study that was focusing on the effects of drought and household livelihoods in Laikipia, that actually aimed at looking at the mitigation measures that livelihoods actually take to overcome the challenges of climate change. Now, if I take you back to our earlier presentations, that one by Cosmas on harnessing data, he said that traditionally it was possible to predict weather even without the modern technology. Then if you have to look at what you have been told about the OGEC, we had the informal and the hidden curriculum. Now, my presentation actually borders on that when you look at the indigenous people, what is it that was working that we need to mainstream into the national adaptation, climate adaptation policies? Now, if you have to look at climate change, we basically say it's a shift of global climate, and this is attributed to both natural and anthropogenic causes. Now, there are those human-induced changes are basically that are considered to have really had a very great impact or significant impact to the changing climate as we see it today. If you are to look at my study area, Laikipia, this is basically an area that faces drought and sometimes flash floods. Now, if you are to look at these frequent droughts, sometimes they lead to great challenges in terms of the loss of livelihoods and sometimes even loss of lives to these pastoralists. Why are these pastoralists in Laikipia vulnerable? One is because this area falls within an arid and semi-arid land, meaning that if you have to think about now climate change, it becomes an additional burden to what they have been facing initially. Then the over-reliance on rain-fed agriculture is also a challenge to the pastoralist, and therefore their pasture every time relies on natural or on rainfall, and therefore when rains fails, then it leads to reduction of pasture, and at the end of the day, then they are either forced to migrate with the animals, or if they don't do that, then they have to incur high cost of feeds if they are to source pasture from elsewhere, or sometimes you realize that these people lose their animals if they didn't take necessary adaptation measures. Now, if you are to look at the local adaptations that are practiced within Laikipia, they are based on individual perceptions. People will only act based on how they perceive things, the concept of awareness. And therefore, if you are to look at drought within Laikipia, during maybe favorable conditions in Laikipia, then they normally witness influx of neighbors who comes from the neighboring counties that normally face drought. An example is Samburu, West Pokot, and even some parts of Baringo. So basically, the Laikipia people will actually suffer when drought is in their region. However, they will still suffer when they have favorable conditions, but their neighbors are suffering, because it becomes basically a safe haven for the neighbors to come and graze the animals in Laikipia. Now, we need to ask ourselves, what are these indigenous local knowledge that Africans have that will basically, or that has kept them all this time? When you talk about indigenous knowledge, we are talking about the local knowledge, or basically the understanding skills and philosophy that are developed by the society with the long histories of interaction with their natural environment, so that they have interacted with this natural environment for a very long time, and therefore they have actually known what works and what doesn't work, and what they do when faced with emerging calamities and challenges. Now, when you talk about Africa, this is a continent that is rich in terms of indigenous knowledge, and it has worked actually for a very long time. It has informed them in terms of the environmental conservation, and that's why we have even learned that the Ogiek lived with the environment all this time, and there was no problem. So we're asking ourselves, what is it that was working, is still working among us, these local people, that can be mainstreamed into what we think about in terms of the adaptation practices and policies? Now, the mode of data collection for this study, I used what we call the key informant interviews and the focus group discussions. I managed to interact with so many elders within Laikipia, and I managed also to look at the key practitioners working in Laikipia and wanted to know what is it that the local community have used that has worked, and maybe possibly look at the limitations so that we can be able to see what is the way forward. Now, if I look at the literature review, from literature review, I found that there are various examples that can be actually, we can actually acknowledge in Africa. If you look at my two photos there, we realize that if I am to look at where we have the goat, there is a goat that has some belt tied on it there. Now, this is basically appreciation by the local communities that during dry conditions and lack of pasture, it is not the favorable time for these goats to basically reproduce. So when you think about reproduction, reproduction requires when these animals have balanced diet, enough pasture, and the like. So if they don't want these goats to reproduce at that time, it is tied there basically for a purpose. If it want to mount the female, then at the end of the day, there is a barrier that is put there. And that's basically a family, traditional family planning for the goats that can actually be seen how to advance it. Now, if you are to look at the second picture, this was captured from the Daily Nation, I think last year. This is actually from Kwale. During drought, these animals are likely to invade into people's lands. But this is somebody who is moving with his animal to look for pasture. But he doesn't want to create conflict with the neighbors in terms of these animals invading their lands. So what does he do? He improvises some masks for these animals. Just look at the animals. They have some masks. And therefore, when they are moving across the farms, then they're able to coexist with the pasture, or not with the pasture, but with the maize planted on these farms. Other examples from literature, especially from the African context, environmental conservation has always been there. If you are to look at the pastoralists in Turkana, they preserve the pasture in Loima Hills, so that if you come from Turkana, you will basically attest to this, that Loima Hills is only preserved by the pastoralist, and people only graze in Loima during the unfavorable conditions within the surrounding. So this is pasture that is actually stocked, and it's only utilized during the dry seasons. Now, if you are to look at among the people, like among the Agikuyu community, we have trees that had been considered sacred, the Mugumo tree. So that at the end of the day, it was actually not considered sacred in such a way that you are not even allowed to get into the shrine with your shoes. So you remove your shoes to basically show how that place is clean. In a way, if you have to look at from a traditional perspective, that is basically knowledge that was utilized to make sure that there is no indiscriminate invasion of these shrines, and therefore at the end of the day you achieve the wider goal of environmental conservation. Now, if you have to look at short weather predictions amongst the Boranas in Ethiopia, the animal behavior was basically something that was informing them about the changes in the weather pattern. The flowering of trees, for instance, amongst the Ugandans, then it actually showed some indications of a storm that is coming. The behavior of birds, for instance, in Zimbabwe, will basically be able to predict the onset or the cessation of precipitation, among others. Now, if I'm to come back to the indigenous local knowledge now in Laikipia that we are able to find, now I found that Laikipia, because of the influx of the pastoralists who come to seek for or to look for pasture and water, there is normally very high incidences of conflicts. Laikipia has been on the news for bad reasons, conflicts. We have pastoralists who come and they are looking for pasture. Now, how were these elders able to manage those conflicts in the past, before the coming of the guns? I'm sure there was an incident you had where animals were gunned down by the police who wanted to go and maybe quell conflicts. But how were these elders managing conflicts? One thing I noted is that among the Maasais and the Samburus, elders are highly respected. So that is basically one. Elders are highly respected, and therefore they are considered as a source of peace and not the police. So that when you look at those people, the presence of the police to them is they consider it basically as undoing, but they will basically value what their elders say. Now, if you are to look at the Maasais, for another thing that I noted that was very important, when they have the newcomers, they don't perceive them as rivals, but they are very quick to share pasture. I was told that the spirit of giving is highly valued by the Maasais in terms of livestock grass. By the way, that is where I learned why Africans are very generous. You get into an African homestead during lunch hour. When you are in Africa, you don't necessarily need to go hungry. You can get into an homestead and then maybe pretend to be asking something. Be assured that you'll be served with a cup of tea or some meals. Why are Africans very generous? I came to realize that if you are to give somebody food, then you soften the stance that they had when they were approaching your homestead. Even the enemies, when they are coming, when you serve them some food, then you neutralize. It's like a gateway to friendship, and therefore they basically have a way of communicating. So that's why the pastoralists believed, and they are able to actually interact with their neighbors. So when they come, they share some pasture. So in a way, they actually neutralize the hostility that these fellows might be having. Then I also noted there is a distance observed by two neighbors, so that when they are grazing the animals, there will be no incidences of lambs and calves mixing. So they don't graze and combine the animals, but they have to maintain a certain distance so that there will be no conflict between the calves that will be mixed at the end of the day. Now, if you are to look at I say the elders are highly respected there, and therefore there are many ranches in Laikipia, especially most of them are owned by foreigners, so that to avoid conflicts, these elders normally restrict entry of the animals in these ranches without consent of the ranch owners. Now, yeah, thank you, Prof. Let me wind up. Now, what I want us now to say, on issues of matters of drought, the elders basically, especially during drought and famine, elders perform some sacrifices to intervene on behalf of the community. One, they perform some sacrifices under a tree called the Oreteti tree, where a goat is slaughtered, and women basically sing traditional songs going downstream. And the other thing is that they study goat intestines to predict drought within that area. Now, my conclusion, I encountered an elder when I asked him how they predict drought there, and he had revelations that touched me. He said that nowadays we are really in problems. Initially, there was a time we used to predict drought, but today things have changed. There was a man from the South Hall who was able to predict drought through observation of the star. The people said that the star wanted to eat their intestines. That meant starvation. Due to lack of food, unfortunately, the person was killed by those people who thought that he was responsible for the outcome of the drought predicted and causes the animals to die. Since that time, we were not able to receive predictions, and hope one of his children will have the same wisdom when they grow up. So lastly, we have the limitations of this knowledge. We have to appreciate that this knowledge is basically, it depends on the local context, so that it becomes a limitation to actually spread it across the region. It is basically local, it is localized, and therefore it becomes sometimes difficult to predict it. Then the concept of preservation and transmission is limited, especially with the modernity where the traditional songs, the traditional meetings are no longer valued, then it becomes a problem for the transmission of this knowledge. So friends, thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you, Dr. Karanja, for that presentation that, as I said earlier, ties very well with the first presentation by Dr. Chule. And I'll want to set the motion or the ball rolling in terms of questions and answers. And I'll limit to 2 questions, as I said earlier, for the first presenter, and 2 questions for the second presenter. Now, the rapporteur, Dr. Donde, has a question for Dr. Karanja. That's the first one. Is the rampant conflict a product of seasonality or culture? That is the first question. So I'll want to hear if there is an online presenter who wants to ask a question, and we will have at least 2 questions from the online and 2 from the floor. So online, if you are on, let's hear your question and direct it to either the first presenter, Dr. Chule, or the second presenter, Dr. Karanja.
Hello, good morning, or is it afternoon?
Good afternoon.
Yes, I think this is a very interesting session for both Dr. Chule and Dr. Karanja. But I think I want to put it on an aspect, not really as a question. Is it possible to come up with a policy brief? So these are very informed ideas, so now we can actually use the traditional knowledge to extend how to mitigate climate change by communities. Is it possible maybe during this conference, right after the conference, that we come up with a policy brief on how this can be adopted so that it can be into the national agenda or the county government? So maybe it's my recommendation.
Thank you. And if I got you correct, that's Professor Kitaka, who has asked a question to the rest of us, and especially the 2 presenters. Is it possible to come up with a policy brief with respect to this aspect of indigenous knowledge and climate change? That is what the task that is being sent to you. Okay. Any other online presenter who wants to ask a question?
Yes, Prof. I have a question.
Yes,
directed it to Dr. Karanja.
Yes.
So, Dr. Karanja, you have given us limitations of indigenous local knowledge, but you have not shown us the strength. So, do we need it? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Prof. That was Professor Muidali Ntoirimba. Any other question from the floor? Yes, Dr. Utachi, and okay, I want, before I ask Muhindo to also ask a question, I want to see any other person. Okay, Dr. Chesikau. So Dr. Chesikau go first, and then Dr. Utachi has the mic. Yeah, continue.
Sorry, Prof. Thanks.
It's okay.
My question is to Dr. Chule. The OGX, how do they know their age? Were there any records? Thank you.
Thank you. The question is, how do the OGX know their age?
Thank you. My question goes to Dr. Chule about the current status of the Okiek people, whether the indigenous knowledge is still in use in any way, and issues of them, what's happening with them in terms of their food chain, use of indigenous knowledge, and the gender responsibilities, and how do we mitigate on those issues, especially now that Mao has been encroached. So those guys could be homeless and everything. I don't know if I'm allowed to ask Dr. Karanja, because I'm a pastoralist, and the things he was talking about almost touched me, most of them. We still have issues of conflict in Samburu, and especially in the huge farms. And so you said the old men, they were say, well respected, but still the conflict is there. And you said the people listen to the Wase. But then I think they listen, the Wase come after the conflict, so that when the issue is there, they come in to solve. So I don't know, maybe you can clarify for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chesikau. I want Kevin to briefly, is it Muhindo? Muhindo, ask a quick question, please, before we allow the presenters to tackle.
Thank you. This goes to Dr. Chule. When analyzing the nexus between environmental conservation and indigenous education, most of the results that she presented were rather qualitative. So I wanted to ask, couldn't it be interesting to look at some quantitative data on forest degradation during the period the Ogiek were occupying the forest, in order to confirm that they were really conserving the forests? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. As the presenters answer that, their questions, the two of them, Dr. Karanja and Dr. Chule, in our Constitution, Chapter 5, Land and Environment, Article 69, 1C talks about protection or preservation of indigenous knowledge as an aspect that should be contributing to environmental conservation. How much of that is being done, or how much of that has been translated into actions that really are helping in environmental conservation? Thank you. Proceed, Dr. Chule first, and then Dr. Karanja. You have 2.5 minutes each.
Thank you for those questions from the participants. Allow me to respond to them very fast. One was a challenge, actually a comment that is it possible to do a policy brief? And I would say something we may want to chat for the way forward with Dr. Karanja. We had not thought about it, but yeah, it is possible. Then a question by Dr. Otachi. How did the Ogiek know their age? Were there records? It was possible to establish the age of these people because, like I had mentioned, their culture, their way of life is in terms of working in groups, so that if they go out for initiation, you can easily tell this is my core-in sheet. We were in that initiation, 20 of us. And that group of people will most likely be the same age set. So that helped us to trace them. Then the status, the current status of Ogiek. It's so unfortunate that for the many years they lived within Mau Forest, they were able to coexist in the forest without any degradation. But after encroachment, things turned upside down, that the forests was being cleared, a lot of soil erosion, too much cultivation in the forest, and therefore we ended up losing Mau forests. And we are not talking about restoring Mau, and Egerton has been part of this journey. So the question we need to ask ourselves is, what was different? What is it that the Ogieks were doing differently when they inhabited the Mau forest alone, without these other people getting in? And that was the gist of this study, that they had knowledge and skills that they also imparted into the younger generation that enabled them to utilize the resources without actually depleting them with the loss we've seen. What is it about the gendered responsibility? I want to believe that even after being evacuated from Mau forests, this still continues because it is part and parcel of their culture. You cannot get rid of the culture from a people. And then a question on the nexus between the environment and conservation. Environmental conservation and indigenous education. And someone is asking, was it not possible to present quantitative data on the extent to which the Ogieks were able to conserve the forests? And I want to mention that the way the instruments were structured and the interaction with our respondents, we didn't focus on quantitative data in terms of what they were able to preserve, because it was evidenced that for the while they lived within Mau forests, nobody ever complained about land degradation until when encroachment began. So I'm still convinced that they had appropriate means of ensuring proper utilization and use and reuse of the resources that existed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Maybe my first question I want to respond is that from Professor Merimba. I want to say that indigenous knowledge, we need it. It helped these people live or source their livelihoods in that time. It helped them to coexist peacefully, and therefore this is something we need to consider to mainstream it into our adaptation policies that we have. Now, the limitations that I mentioned were only on two perspectives. One, scalability. The scalability will basically be affected by the context of the local context. That's basically what we need to do. And therefore, when you want to scale it, then you have to look at the context. Like in this case, we are talking about pastoral livelihoods, so that it is applicable in regions where we have pastoralists, and especially where we have pastoralists who move with the animals from one place to the other. Now, the second issue was on transmission. This knowledge is preserved in the memories of the elders, and therefore, if the young generation will not have an opportunity to interact with the elders, then this information is lost. And therefore, what we need to do, opportunities need to be presented where this information can actually be shared so that it is able to pass from one generation to the other. The concept of documentation so that it is not lost. Now, when you look at there was a question on the rampart conflict in Laikipia, and somebody was asking whether it is production, seasonality, or culture. What I want to mention is that there are so many dynamics that have now happened in Laikipia. The promulgation of the new constitution in Kenya was one of them. The lease period was reduced from 999 years to 99. There are so many ranches that are owned by foreigners in Laikipia, and therefore, most of the time that these people are to occupy this land has expired because of the change in constitution, because of the 99 years. So there are so many people salivating to get those lands, and therefore that's why we have accelerated conflicts, so that these people can basically go do what we call the takeover. Then something else that has actually happened in Laikipia that is basically very dangerous is the commercialization of cattle rustling. the rustlers now are not the ordinary rustlers who used to walk with the animals or trek with the animals. But these are animals that are now stolen, packed into or loaded into lorries and actually transported far. So that at the end of the day, what we normally see as rustlers there, those are just spanner boys working for someone. And I want to assure you that if you want to believe that is true, every time we have an attack in Laikipia, there are members of parliament who come to record statements in Nakuru. Why do they do that? So that tells you that it is actually more bigger than now the elders that were relied upon in terms of peace during that time. Now, a question is, we still have conflicts in Laikipia despite the Wazes. I want to mention that when the Wazes interventions were very powerful, it's because they were the sole people who were relied on the ground. That's why their respect, their voices mattered. But you see, we have now many players coming. We have the National Cohesion and Integration Commission after the promulgation of the 2010 Constitution. The counties have come. Then we have the National Police. So that at the end of the day, every time we have an attack, we have the Minister for Interior sending a plane to Laikipia to go and intervene, the firefighting skills. So what happens is that we have never taken time to integrate these Wazes and really find out what is the problem. We just land there with our guns. Young boys from Kiganjo the other day, they come and just start opening fire without looking at the deep-rooted causes of these conflicts. So what we are saying is, if these Wazes can actually be integrated, their strategies they can be integrated into mainstream climate adaptation policies, then I can assure you that Laikipia will forever be peaceful. Thank you.
Thank you to the two presenters. A round of applause to the two, please. Thank you, thank you. Allow me now to move to the next presenter, that is Karimeri M. Is he here physically or online? Okay. I want to believe silence online and physically here means the person is not present. So we will move on to the next one, that is Liaka. Are you around? Okay. Liaka, as she comes, she is going to make a presentation on site suitability analysis for an antivenom manufacturing laboratory using geographic information systems. And as she does that, the presentation is co-authored by Wena and Milewa. Karibu. As Liaka does the transfer of a presentation to the computers of the Secretariat, I could like to again ask if Karimeri, again it looks like the same presenter, is he online or is not? I want to believe is not. So we'll wait for Liaka to make her presentation, and then we will engage her in questions. So Alex, are you able to get her presentation? No? Okay. Online, but you are not speaking. Can you unmute yourself? Karimeri, can you hear us? Check on the chat. What is on the chat? So as we sort out Karimeri, who happens to be online, but she's not able to connect with us, we will deal with this one of Liaka. I'm told they have found the presentation. Yes, it's here. So we'll allow her to make the presentation as they look for Karimeri to make their presentations. There are two presentations that he has.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vishan Liaka, and I'll be presenting on site suitability analysis for an antivenom manufacturing laboratory using geographic information systems. And the case study was Baringo North Sub-County. The co-authors, Mrs. Mary Gwena and Dennis Milewa. Baringo North Sub-County is located in Baringo County. It's a semi-arid area. Okay. So picture this, where the fear of slithering snakes isn't just a childhood tale, but a stark reality haunting a community. While the 19th of September marks Snakebite Awareness Day, a day aimed at creating awareness on the pain and suffering that snake bites cause to impoverished communities, the urgency of this matter demands our attention beyond a single day. And coming to Kenya, the World Health Organization records a yearly death of 1,000 people, over 1,000 people due to snake bites, because this is a neglected tropical disease. And in Africa, the numbers go as high as 100,000 yearly due to snake bites. And in North Baringo Sub-County, a trail of disability and death is being left behind by venomous snakes such as puff adders, cobras, and vipers, which attack the residents in their homes, in their places of work, and on their day-to-day activities. The problem is that Kenya lacks an antivenom from native snakes, and it heavily relies on importation, which is costly. Because of the low production of antivenom, it makes the prices to be higher than expected. And this problem of importation is that the venom composition sometimes can vary between species, and this can be ineffective to use these antivenoms in the country. And furthermore, the health facilities are always out of stock, and this worsens the prognosis. For this study, it endeavors to play a role in combating snakebite envenoming by fostering local production of antivenom within the country, By using geographic information systems, this study conducts site suitability analysis to locate optimal sites for an antivenom laboratory in Baringo North sub-county. As I've mentioned, the main objective was to map the site suitability, the suitable sites for an antivenom manufacturing laboratory. And the first step was to identify the various criteria for the suitable sites. And this involved identifying physical factors such as slope of the area, accessibility to electricity, rivers, built-up areas, and protected areas. Number two was to determine the weights of the identified criteria. In this method, the expert judgment from the National Museums of Kenya was very helpful. It played a pivotal role in this process. This is because it involved SATI's analytical hierarchy process, which incorporates pairwise comparison to evaluate the relative importance of the identified criteria, such as the health centers, the electricity grids, and so on. So the expert judgment was very helpful in determining such factors, such as health, in the pairwise comparison, health centers, built-up areas, roads, yes. And when it comes to the determination of weights, to ensure the accuracy, a consistency ratio was calculated. This helped us to have to ensure reliability of the determined weights used on these identified factors. And the weights, and third specific objective was to, third was to determine the most suitable site for antivenom laboratory using geographic information systems. Using GIS-based multi-criteria approach, whereby it integrates spatial data layers that represent the identified factors, and using the weights already determined through SATI's analytical hierarchy process, they're able to be integrated together in ArcGIS software. And from here, we were able to determine the most suitable sites and ranging up to the unsuitable sites. This is basically the process. And from the results, the map shows a geographic distribution of snakebite cases. And this is just in Baringo North sub-county alone. And this shows the dire situation in this area, because these are only the reported cases, and many incidences go unreported due to snake bites. And this was our suitability map in areas such as Kinyach. In red, it marks the highly suitable areas, which, as we'll see, will occupy 0.61% of the total area of the region. Such areas such as Kinyach and Bartabwa and Kituro areas marked in red, and also Barwesa. This is without the sublocations. And in conclusion, we can see that through the use of geographic information systems and SATI's analytical hierarchy process, this study, it assessed various physical factors to determine suitable sites for an antivenom manufacturing laboratory. Because the benefits of having a local manufacturing laboratory, it's increased accessibility to antivenom. We have cost reduction in terms of importation from other countries, and tailored solution. We develop antivenoms tailored to specific species of snakes that we have in the country. And the expert judgment from the National Museums of Kenya played a huge role in determining suitability of factors, and the use of consistency ratios really ensured the reliability of the influencing weights. And this study was classified into areas such as unsuitable, least suitable, as we saw on the map, moderately suitable, and 0.61% was highly suitable, which covered 967 meters squared of the total area in Baringo North sub-county. And this study emphasizes the importance of geographic information systems as we have seen, in addressing the pressing issue of snake bites and venoming by giving us optimal sites for an antivenom manufacturing laboratory, which is highly needed in the country. And most snake bites occur during the hot season as they are more active. This is, the snakes attack people in their homes, in their sleeps, children, mothers, fathers, because they already live in dilapidated conditions, and it makes it easier for snakes which are in search of water, and they end up attacking people in their homes, whether at night or during the day. And an establishment for the recommendations, establishment of an antivenom manufacturing laboratory should be considered to help address the issue of snake bites and venoming, as the World Health Organization aspires to cut the number of snake bite and venoming by 50% by 2030. And accurate and reliable data should be collected. This is because the number of incidences occurring, whether in Baringo North Sub-County, is not highly recorded. We do not have specific numbers of incidences or of reported cases caused by snake bites in the area. And a study of correlation between temperature and snake occurrence is highly valuable. This is because the predictive information on the high-risk time periods and weather patterns, it can help in implementing preventive measures to reduce snake bites. We can tell in which regions will be highly affected during certain times of the year. And allocation of resources will be key to enhance for ongoing research. As this is ongoing research, it's necessary to allocate more resources for this research to enhance efficacy and safety of products. And to address the challenge of unsuitable sites and least suitable sites, it's quite imperative that measures to be taken in terms of improving of infrastructure and health facilities. This will help us increase the highly suitable areas, because you can find that because there are less health facilities in the area, so accessibility to the health facilities, it kind of limits the suitability of the area. So once this is addressed, we can have more highly suitable areas in the region. And also this study can be applied in regions affected by snake bites and venoming, such as Kitui, Kilifi counties. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Liaka, for that presentation on a topic that is really present in terms of the challenges that are faced by the people of not only Baringo, but most of the arid and semi-arid areas. And so we will engage you shortly. Let's find out if we are able to get hold of Karimeri. Are you online?
Yes. Yes, I'm online.
Finally, you are there. Now, what we are going to do is, because you have two presentations, we are going to allow you to make one quick one, and then you only have 10 minutes for each. So one after the other, 10 minutes at max, and then we'll engage you on question-answer session. So 10 minutes for the first presentation, that is on uptake of sustainable water management practices, evidence from star and non-rated hotels in Nakuru County. So you have 10 minutes to do that, please. So we'll allow you to make, to share your slides. I think you have been allowed to make you share your slides. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Mary Karemeri, and my topic of interest is on uptake of sustainable water management practices, evidence from star and non-rated hotels in Nakuru County, Kenya. To the introduction of the study, the hospitality industry has experienced tremendous growth and the hospitality industry is related to matters socioeconomic development of our country because it creates job opportunity to people. It also helps in the growth of the GDP of our country. However, the growth in the hospitality industry has raised a number of concerns in as relation to matters environmental sustainability. There is the challenge in matters related to the increased demand of water by the hospitality industries. Water as a scarce resource.
Karemeri, please excuse me. For
Yes,
purposes of the viewers to see what you are doing, put it on slide mode, your presentation. Put it on slide mode so that we are able to see everything. It's not yet still on slide mode.
Just a moment.
Okay. Somewhere down there on the window, you will see that window that is facing up. Down, down, down. Alex.
Okay.
Ah, good.
Is it
Finally,
okay
there
now?
you are. Yes, please proceed.
Oh, okay, thank you. As I was discussing, the tremendous growth in the hospitality industry is related to matters related to environmental degradation. This is because of the increased demand of fresh water in the hospitality industry for consumption. Basically, the hospitality industry is reliant on water, fresh water, for a number of activities such as cooking, the swimming pool. It is also, they need water for cleaning surfaces, etc. And so the increased demand of the volumes of water by the hospitality industry translates to mean that there is scarcity of water that will maybe be shared to other people in the urban areas. Also, the increased consumption of the water by the hospitality industry translate to mean that there will be increased wastewater output to the environment, which results to matters pollution. So one of the roles of the hospitality industry is to help in the sustainability of our environment, and they'll help in the sustainability of the environment by the uptake of sustainable water management practices so that they can help reduction of the water by the hospitality industry, as well as help in the reduction of the wastewater that is generated to the environment. By doing so, the hospitality industry will help in the attainment of the Sustainable Development Goal number 6, that is on clean water and sanitation, as well help in the addressing the Sustainable Development Goal number 13 on climate action. In Nakuru County, there have been reports that there have been tremendous growth in the county, and this growth is linked to economic activities as well as population growth and expansion of the industries. And hospitality industry is not exempted, and it is on this reason that the study focuses on the hospitality industry within Nakuru County. Proceeding on to the methods and materials that were used for the study. On the research design, the study used cross-sectional research design as data was collected at one point in time. On the approach to the study embraced mixed method approach because quantitative data was collected using questionnaires and qualitative data was collected using semi-structured interviews. The target population for the study were hotel managers, that is for the quantitative data, and for the qualitative data, key public as well as private stakeholders within the hospitality industries were targeted. As regards the data collection tool, questionnaires were used for quantitative data, semi-structured interview guide was used to collect qualitative data, and for the quantitative data, the data was collected among us 204 hotel managers, and for the qualitative data, the data was collected from 13 key informants. On the findings, as regards the uptake of sustainable water management practices in relation to water policies, it was established that quite a number of hotels, that is 91.2%, indicated that they have policies on water conservation. Proceeding on to specific water policies, majority of the hotels, represented at 74%, indicated that they have water policies on rainwater harvesting and storage. On the specific water policies in relation to reuse of water, there was moderate response as 58.3% hotels indicated that they have embraced policies on reuse of wastewater. On the policy on recycling of wastewater, these had low representation, as only 27.9% of the hotels indicated that they have policies on using recycled wastewater. Further, on policies of whether the hotels have installed shower heads instead of bathtubs so that they can conserve water, quite a number of hotels with a representation of 77% indicated that they have the policies on specific water, on use of shower heads instead of bathtubs. On the qualitative data that supported the findings on the uptake of sustainable water management practices policies, this was supported by one of the key informants who mentioned that quite a number of hotels in Nakuru have implemented measures to reduce their water footprint because they have implemented measures such as harvesting and storage of rainwater and the use of the rainwater for hotel activities. Proceeding on to the second variable on the uptake of sustainable water management practices, it was on the budget, and the respondents were asked to indicate whether they have budgets for supporting sound water management practices, and only 9.8% of the hotels indicated that they have budget for supporting sound water management practices, and this was supported by qualitative data, where one of the key informants indicated that the issue of cost can be a challenge in relation to matters uptake of the sustainable water management practices, because he mentioned, the respondent mentioned that the uptake of these sustainable water management practices, they are not cheap, they are expensive, especially for the initial installation of these practices. Proceeding on to the third variable that was measured to check or assess the status of sustainable water management practices within Nakuru County. It was on capacity building, and the respondents were asked to indicate whether they conduct staff awareness on matters related to hotel policies on sound water management practices, and only 26% of the hotels indicated that they conduct trainings to their staff on matters related to sound water management practices. As regards hotel managerial trainings, they were specific to ask whether the hotel managers had participated in trainings in relation to water saving measures, and only 22.1% hotels indicated that their managers had participated in water saving measures. Proceeding on hotel managers trainings in relation to sound water management practices, as regards wastewater management practices, only 12.3% hotel managers had participated in trainings in relation to wastewater management practices. And on the last training, in the context of hotel managers, it was reported that only 8.3% managers had participated in trainings that were specific to wastewater recycling practices. On the specific staff trainings on water management practices and conservation, the bar graph that presents the results for the specific trainings that were targeting the staff, hotel staff, as regards sound water management practices in Nakuru County. And from the graph, you can see that the trainings are low, with the highest representation on water saving measures. These are just the normal warnings on water saving measures, maybe to close the tap after use, and it had a representation at 27.0%, with the least representation on the trainings on the use of reusable napkins at 6.4%. The findings, the qualitative findings supporting the quantitative findings, some of the key informants indicated that there is inadequate awareness on water conservation practices, which might act as a barrier in the uptake of sustainable water management practices in Nakuru County within the confinements of the hotels. And this was echoed yet by another key informant who indicated that they need to be trained, the staff, so that they can increase their awareness, and this will be practical if they engage both the government as well as non-governmental actors. To the conclusion and recommendation of the study, The study concludes that on the uptake of sustainable hotel water and wastewater management practices, on budget and trainings by hotels, this uptake is still low. As regards matters policy, sustainable water management practices, it reports that the policies, majority of the hotels indicated that they have sustainable water management policies, and some of the recommendation is that there should be increased sensitization and awareness among the hotel staff as well as the managers on the uptake of sustainable water as well as wastewater management practices. And also it is important on matters sustainable budget for sustainable water management practices, it is important that we provide green finances to the hotels so that we may help them increase their uptake of sustainable water and wastewater management practices. Also, there should be proper guidelines in relation to the sustainable water management practices policies that have been adopted by the hotels to see that the policies capture the aspect of the budget as well as training so that they can be well implemented to ensure that we have sustainable water and wastewater management practices within the hospitality industry. Thank you.
We allow you to proceed to the second presentation, so you can stop sharing this one and upload the other one. You have also 10 minutes to do so. So are you, because you are in control, you are sharing, so are you able to do that?
Just a moment, please.
Yes.
I hope you can see my second presentation from your end. My name is Mary Karemeri, and my second presentation is on the uptake of green energy practices, evidence from star and non-star rated hotels in Nakuru County, Kenya. To the introduction of the study, the hospitality industry has substantial ties to the socioeconomic development of a country because the hospitality industry creates jobs. It also helps in the growth of the GDP of a country. However, the hospitality industry is leading because in matters regards the energy consumption, it is attributed that the hospitality industry, their operational cost is related to about 30 to 35% as regards matters energy consumption. The increased consumption of this energy by the hospitality industry has an environmental impact because it is associated with the increased emissions of greenhouse gases to the environment. This is because majority of the energy that is consumed by the hospitality industry is linked to the emission of carbon dioxide gases, methane gases, among other harmful gases that aggravate the global warming as well as climate change. And so it is because of these effects of this emission of these gases to the environment that the hospitality industry has contributed to the degradation of the environment. And so the hospitality industry has a role in the uptake of green energy practices so that they can ensure that they have sustainable practices that helps reduction of the excessive consumption of the energy, as well as it reduces its environmental impact to the environment. In Nakuru County, reports have indicated that solid waste is the leading type of waste to the environment, and basically majority of these solid waste the major contributors are the hotel industry, and in the process of converting these solid waste, especially the cooked food waste, from raw waste to the final cooked waste, that is now the solid waste that is taken to the dump site, energy has been used, and majority of the hotels are dependent on charcoal energy. And so in the process, they emit a number of harmful gases to the environment. And that's the reason why the study focused in its study in Nakuru County. To the methods and materials, on the research design, the study used cross-sectional research design as data was collected at one point in time. To the approach of the study, a mixed method approach was used because the study used both quantitative approach as well as qualitative approach. To the target population, the study targeted hotel managers as well as key public and private sector holders within the confinements of the hospitality industry. On the data collection tools, questionnaires were used to collect quantitative data, and semi-structured interview guides were used to collect qualitative data. Quantitative data was collected from a sample of 204 hotel managers, whereas qualitative data was collected from 13 key informants. Findings on the first variable, which is on the uptake of green energy management practices policy, the respondents were asked to indicate whether they have a policy on green energy practices, and quite a number of hotels, that is at 90.2%, indicated that they have policies on green energy practices. On the specific energy policies, on intentional procurement on purchasing energy-saving electronics, also there was high representation at 69.6%. Hotels indicated that they have policies for intention where they have purchasing energy-saving electronics that is intentional. Still on the uptake of green energy management policies, the bar graph illustrates the green energy management policies that have been adopted by the hotels, with the highest representation at 88.7% being the use of sunlight during daytime, and the least representation at 2.0% for hotels that indicated that they have uptake in matters use of biogas green energy management policies. On matters qualitative data as regards the uptake of green energy management practices policies, one of the key informants indicated that there are some hotels that have implemented the policies on the green energy management practices because they have implemented, for instance, the solar panels for water heating and reduced their dependency on firewood as for heating water as well as for cooking, helping reduce their carbon footprint in matters related to environmental sustainability. Proceeding on to the second variable that was examined in the study, which is in relation to matters budget for uptake of green energy management practices by hotels. Only 16.7% hotels indicated that they have budgets for supporting green energy management practices. And the reason probably for the low representation on matters budget for uptake of green energy management practices by this hotel was indicated by one of the key informants in the qualitative interviews, who indicated that the initial capital of investment can be a barrier because the initial capital is high, but for them that have already invested in these green energy management practices, they have later realized the benefits of these investments. Proceeding on to the next variable that was considered for this study, which is in relation to matters training. The respondents were asked to indicate whether they trained their staff on green energy management practices policies, and only 24.5% hotels indicated that they create awareness to their employees as matters regards green energy practices policies, and 75.5%, which is the majority representation, indicated that did not create awareness to their employees. And maybe the findings were supported by the qualitative interviews, where one of the key informants indicated that the hotels should take the initiative of training their own staff on the importance of going green. so that they do not need to procure consultancy services from external point of views. It will help cut on costs. So from the qualitative data, it gives an explanation why probably the hotels are not engaging in staff training because of the cost related, but they give suggestion that they can train their own instead of procuring consultancy services for the training on the green energy management practices. Proceeding on specific staff trainings on green energy management practices, the bar graph presents the specific trainings, and the highest representation at 24.0% is on trainings on energy saving measures, e.g. the turning off of lights, and the least representation is on fixing the solar panels at 8.8%. To the conclusion and recommendation of the study concludes that on the uptake of budget as well as the trainings in relation to green energy management practices by the hotel, that is still low. However, majority of the hotels indicated that they have green energy management policies they have implemented, but the implementation can become a challenge if they don't have the finances that they are needed and if they do not conduct the trainings. So the study recommends that the hotels should increase the sensitization and awareness creation to their staff as well as their managers on matters uptake of green energy management practices. And they also need to provide green finances to the hotels to help in increasing the uptake of the green energy management practices. And they should revisit on their green energy management practices policies so that they can revise these policies to factor in issues related to matters budget as well as matters training so that they can help in proper implementation of these policies. Also, the government should formulate policies that promote subsidized green energy, such as solar panels, to help the hotel management in purchasing these, or maybe the adaptation of the green energy practices within the hotel industry, because it will be more affordable. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary, for the two presentations that you have made. And I'd like now to invite the audience to interact with the two presenters. The first one on snake venom, especially on the sighting of a laboratory within Baringo County. So we want to engage this presenter, Liaka. So you draw closer here. The questions are coming. Online presenters, if you have a question, let me know. We are going to limit it to 2 questions per presenter or per presentation. Online, if you have a question, unmute and ask the question. If not, those ones that are on the ground, those ones that are physically present, if you have a question for our lady here, and as she comes, so I want to ask the presenter, Liaka. The first question that I have here is, since 2010, I think I know, Baringo County has always been wanting to establish a laboratory and a manufacturing site for anti-venom, given the prevalence of snake bites in that area. Do you think the problem is really not knowing where the site is going to be, or there are other underlying obstacles? That is the first question. Any other question? Maxi, yes.
Thank you so much, Liaka. I want to pick my question from one of your recommendations. That is, instead of looking at transporting the victims to the facility, if these venoms are already manufactured, why don't we look at a recommendation, or maybe availing these antivenoms into the local hospitals, and then maybe looking at the cost and then the benefits? Is it really fair to to construct a tarmac road in almost all these villages to transport victims of snake bites? Thank you.
Thank you. Any other question? Any other question for this lady? Yes. Muindo. Is there another person? Yes. Quickly, please.
Thank you, Liaka, for the presentation. So when doing a suitability analysis, you have on one side the criteria that you considered, but also on another side, the ranges for each suitability class. But I really missed in your presentation those ranges that you considered in your study. Quickly, secondly, don't you think that you needed to incorporate climate criteria among your criteria, because you only considered 4, and this may explain why you only got 0.61% for highly suitable class? Thank you.
Thank you. In the meantime, I request that Mary, you stop sharing your screen. Now we want to go questions for presenter number 2, that is Mary. We'll have answer 3 questions also. You can ask questions on water management or energy efficiency. Sorry? Or there is an online raised hand. Okay, the one that is raised, please ask the question.
Thank you so much, Prof. This is Professor Kitaka. My questions are directed to Katameri, especially on the water management strategies. I noted that in your presentation, you talked about there are some hotels which are doing recycling of water. And I was wondering, what are they using this water for recycling? And is there any management strategy, which is the management strategy before the water is being recycled? So that is my question number 1. My question on your second presentation is on the energy, the green energy. And I was not very sure whether the only strategy these hoteliers have taken up is on solar energy per se. Are there any other initiative they have done for the green energy? Like, for example, because they produce a lot of solid waste as you introduce your presentation. Are they using biogas for cooking, for example? And if not, why? What is the challenge? Is it technology, or is it not being aware of the methods? Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Kitaka. Any other physical? Sorry?
Yes, my question goes to Karemeri. And the question is, you are studying star-rated and non-rated hotels. How did they compare in terms of their adaptation to these sustainable technologies?
Thank you. Last question. Yes, Dr. Nyamweya, please briefly.
I'm Nyamweya. Now, earlier in the presentation, this is to Dr. Karimeri, earlier in the presentation, she says the hotels, I had 91% adoption of conservation and stuff like that. But when she came to training of the managers, it was 22% on water conservation, 12% on waste management, and 8% training on waste recycling, something like that. So these people who are doing so well, how come in the training they were doing so poorly? Is it that they didn't need the training after all?
Thank you. Thank you. We will ask now Liaka to come here and respond to our questions. You have 3 minutes to do so, all those questions. And then we'll allow Mary to proceed with many questions also.
Thank you for the questions. I'll start with the climate criteria. Among my recommendations, I'd recommended an analysis done on temperature and high-risk patterns and weather patterns. And I'd mentioned that the predictive information recorded from the high-risk time periods and the weather patterns will be key in addressing preventive measures of snake bite and venoming in Baringo sub-county. And also among the criteria, I'm sorry, for the purpose of showcasing here, I only showcased 4, but the criteria were 8. We had slope, land use, land cover, built-up areas, roads, electricity, protected areas, health centers, and water. Sorry, there were not 4 criteria, there were 8. And on the matters of transportation of victims, the matter of improving of infrastructure addressed the issue of the challenge of unsuitable and least suitable sites. Nowadays, we have drones which help in transportations of antivenoms to victims. So this issue of transporting of antivenom, it was here to address this challenge of why do we have a highly suitable area covering a small percentage of the total area, and the unsuitable and least suitable areas covering high percentages. And that's why improving of infrastructure, improving of the healthcare system will increase the highly suitable areas for an antivenom manufacturing laboratory. And for the question of since 2010, establishment of a laboratory in prevalence, and I don't know if I'd mentioned this or failed to mention this. If you go into research of what Kenya is trying to do in the antivenom manufacturing process, it's very hard to find such data on what steps the government has taken in establishing an antivenom laboratory. And this is why we sought to establish an antivenom laboratory using geographic information systems. And sometimes it can be in the implementation of what they had in mind in terms of what had they put across in establishing of a laboratory. Because if you search for data in terms of establishment of a manufacturing laboratory, it's hard to find it. The government has tried in community engagements and all that and preventive measures, but establishing a laboratory, it's quite difficult to find data on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary, are you online? We want to hear you respond in 3 minutes to those questions. Please do so. You can pick
I'm online.
two questions from the water and the other one 2 from energy. So quickly you can do it.
Thank you. I'll respond to the first question that was asked on matters related recycling of wastewater. There was low representation by the hotels on matters recycling of water, but for the hotels that indicated that they recycle their wastewater, they indicated that special treatment is given to this water so that it becomes somehow clean and is used for purposes of majorly irrigation of the lawns and cleaning of the services, especially the pavements within the hospitality industry. Proceeding on to the next question, which was on matters green energy. The hotels have not only implemented or uptaken the green energy in relation to matters solar energy, they've also taken other uptakes, such as the use of energy-saving bulbs. That is an uptake that has been done by majority of the hotels. Also, in matters related to the green energy-saving equipments, especially the refrigerators, you'll find that majority of the hotels, especially the contemporary hotels, when they are purchasing their refrigerators, they are going for the star-rated equipments, which show that they are energy efficient. Proceeding on to the last question that was asked, on matters, the difference in relation to the policies. Majority of the hotels indicated that they have uptake in matters related to the policies, that is in matters sustainable water management practices as well as green energy practices. Yes, however, they indicated that they have low trainings in relation to this uptake of green energy as well as sustainable water management practices. And the possible reason for this difference is maybe in relation to matters training, because they thought that they needed a consultant who will give them training, who will offer training to their staff as well as to the managers. Also in relation to matters time, because the hospitality industry is a busy industry, so creating time for their staff to engage in this training was a challenge. And also finding these skilled personnel who will need maybe to be paid to offer these services was a challenge, and probably issues related to their attitudes on matters training. Probably they feel that it is not necessary per se. However, future studies can delve into this and check why the hotels indicated that they have majority indicated they have policies, but the majority indicated that they do not offer trainings to their staff as well as to their managers. Thank you.
Thank you, the online audience, as well as those ones that are physically present. I have 4 comments that I want to make. One is that the sub-theme that we have been dealing with relating to environmental, technical, and policy approaches in the context of climate change and indigenous knowledge, of course, it's really been timely and it is relevant. And number 2 is that we have had a very active audience that was present here, and the online audience was also equally engaged in the discussions, and we really appreciate each one of you. And finally, this is the first time, Professor Mungai, that I have attended a session which is 100% participation in terms of all the presentations being made. Can you clap for yourselves? Yes, so I'm really happy and want to commend the efforts of the Research Conference Committee. They have done a very good job, and from our end as the session chair in charge of this particular sub-theme, together with my colleague, Dr. Donde, who has been serving as a rapporteur. Dr. Donde, could you stand up and say and wave to the congregation that is here? Amen. It's no longer an audience, it's a congregation. Now, we thank you, and I want to usher in Professor Mungai to carry it on from here as you move on. I don't know whether Professor Mungai or Kioko Kivandi. Kioko, you are in red, so I'm in black. I cease to be the chair here. You become the moderator, and we continue. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think he deserves another better and stronger round of applause. Of course, to himself and to the moderator, to the rapporteur, and that also extends to the chair and the rapporteur of the other session that happened at the Nest Suite room. Asante sana. So I see that the technical team has actually decided that this laptop remains here so that then it acts as some kind of a video for me. I see how I am appearing in the frame and so on. This is what you are transferring online, eh? Okay, so I will make sure I am appearing well in the frame. So then, we are coming to the end of the 15th Biennial conference, international conference here at Egerton University, whose theme has been Research for Innovative Solutions in the 21st Century. And like I was saying in the morning, that even my attire today is actually inspired by innovation. Because, you know, I had some people trying to propose that we actually brand it as a bottom-up suit. But my proposal is that we call it the Taptengele suit. You know why? Because the concept of Taptengele is about innovation, is about the creative economy, because you tap and money comes, eh? Anyway, let's move forward. We are going to have a performance by students from the School of Performing Arts. And with that, then I'm going to request some help into turning the panel podium now into a performance podium. And as we do that, as we get ready for them, the coordinator, I hope that they are actually ready to come and perform. Is that so, Odero? Are they ready? They are ready. Okay, so once we do that, then we will have them. Maybe as they get ready, we could just have the mics go around. And I hear one or two people, what's your take home? What's your key take home from this conference? Mine is Kenya loses 2 to 2.4% of its GDP due to effects of climate change. That one I will sing today and for several times. And perhaps I may even do a media documentary or article on it. Just one or two as they get ready. What's your key take home? Key take home. Anyone? Your key take home. Yes?
Okay, I'm Brenda. My key take home is, as much as we, the young people, like we are much innovative and it seems we are much aggressive, my take home is that we also need the older people, those who are ahead of us, to guide us more.
Perfect. Asante. Another one? A key take home. Yes, there is one from Dr. Donde. And now the performing team can start getting in.
We need to embrace homegrown solutions.
Thank you so much. The performing team can start getting in. Any other? Oh, okay. Are they live? Okay, oh, they are here. All right. This is a good one. And perhaps before I make that comment, let me also make this announcement that we'll be sharing the conference evaluation forms, and we sincerely request that everyone fills those forms. They'll be shared on email as well as in the Zoom chats. All right. Our colleagues, especially those who are joining us from other countries, kindly let's hear your voices. Uganda, Tanzania, Nigeria, they were here. Some very beautiful presentation there from the state of Katsina. I got it right? All right, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, participants. Well, my take home is, one, from my experience here, it's like all Africans are still the same. But apart from that, like I said in the other hall here, I want to sincerely appreciate the management and staff, including the student of Egerton University. I told them there, I said, you people we are complaining about climate change. But the kind of environment we have here is more or less a contrast to what we are saying. Because here, if you see the landscape, the green environment, and other things, I want to say kudos to the management and staff of this noble university. We are highly impressed with what we have seen here. Definitely when we get back home, we inform them that Kenya is moving. There's no way we will not have one issue or the other, just like it has been identified here. But I think once a problem is identified, then it's half solved. Because the next thing will be to get the solution. And the solution should be, the solution should start from those of us that are here now We have helped in identifying the problem. Then let us be part of those that will find a lasting solution, a perfect one, if possible, to what we have identified. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. Maybe the last one. That was Nigeria, Uganda, Tanzania. Was there Burundi? Yes.
Okay, thanks. Also, I'm Anton Sisobara, second year, taking BSc. My key point is that we are supposed to find a solution in which to manage the climate change in our environments. Thanks.
All right. Thank you so much. Let's bring that to a close. The performing arts, the floor is all yours. Karibuni.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kaasi. I will be doing a piece about climate action. I don't want to say I hate, but I don't like how of late the state of our state has been affecting my mental state. I feel a lot of things about this society cannot be said, and this causes a constant battle of voices inside my head. But one of the voices is urging me to address these things through poetry instead. But these thoughts and voices are not what I thought, nor sought, nor fought for, but they are as a result of living in this society, a society that does not look after the future. A society where we believe ati mambo ni matatu, but even after cutting one tree, we can't plant 3. A society. But what are we doing to change? Or yet, what are we doing to change so that we can block climate change, or we are going on further to destroy Mother Nature? And so I feel the urge to scream, to see if this is just a nasty dream, if this is just a craving for ice cream, because it's very hot nowadays due to global warming. Kasi is X. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Joseph Baraka Mimo, student of English and Literature, a disconcerted, saddened, and perturbed inhabitor of this earth. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the best of times, and yet still the worst of times. The best of times because we are living in a world where we have made it possible to travel fast. We are living in a world where everything happens fast. It is so sad that I cannot quote it even in the most iconic quotes of English. So sad that cannot be written even in the most favorite novels. The worst day of my life, ladies and gentlemen, wasn't the day I learned that climate change would not be reversible by 2030. That is barely 6 years from today. Did you know, ladies and gentlemen, that greenhouse gases are at their all-time high? The last day of my life, the worst day of my life, ladies and gentlemen, wasn't the day I learned that about 1 million species are at the risk of extinction. The worst day of my life, ladies and gentlemen, wasn't the day I realized that climate change and global warming is causing refugee crisis in Africa and beyond. I recommend that we have young people in such events because yes, there are some of us who are worried about our future. I believe that global protection and mitigation of climate change is a collective responsibility of every human being on earth. Let me tell you something. Allow me to tell you how carbon can really make this earth inhabitable. Now we have Earth and Venus. Essentially, they have the same size, essentially the same distance from the sun. and the exact amount of carbon. The difference is that on Earth, carbon has been trapped on the ground in the form of coal, natural gas, while in Venus, the carbon is in the atmosphere. Now, the average temperature of Earth is just about 50 degrees Celsius, and yet we are complaining. The average temperature of Venus is a whopping 850 degrees Celsius. And this is not because it is closer to the sun, no. Because Mercury is the closest to the sun, yet 3 times cooler than Venus. Now you know how hot this Earth can be when we eject carbon everywhere in the atmosphere. Ladies and gentlemen, just 20 years ago, before I was born, only 3% of the Amazon was known and explored. But you and I, maybe, very mischievous human beings, now know 100% of the Amazon. Ladies and gentlemen, did you know that Antarctica sheds off 152 billion metric tons of ice annually? Seems like soon we're going to live on water, or maybe in water, wherever. Are you going to breathe? Ladies and gentlemen, the temperature of the Earth is increasing by 1.2 degrees Celsius annually. Do a multiplication of 50 years, 100 inhabitable Earth. For this reason, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to say, let us come together. It is our collective responsibility to come together and make this Earth just as good as it used to be. We have talked about agriculture. We have talked about many other things. And on this podium, people more educated than I am have talked about the way forward. But I think and believe that doing away with global warming, or maybe trying to mitigate the negative climate change, is prerequisite. Let us get ready. It is you and I, Joseph Barak Amimo.
Nowadays, I see a trend on TikTok. Every time it is, of course I am, of course I am. And so, of course, I'm a Kenyan. I can brag that we have green color in our flag, but where else do we have the green? Do we really have the green plantations? I'm a scholar of history, and so I want to take you back to the sweet old days, where young boys would chase after butterflies in the rivers. Unlike nowadays, butterflies are only in the stomach when they're entering the exam rooms because global warming. I remember of the sweet old days, we would chase in the rivers and in the streams, and like nowadays, streams are only in Spotify and Boomplay, where reverse is that gear in a car, the cars that are leading in lead pollution to the environment. So every time you go, just check climate action, SDG number 13, but 13 reasons why we have climate change can be changed by you and me. Cassie Isaacs. Thank you.
Hey, you're getting off the stage so fast. Why? Before we even appreciate you, come back. Come back. That's a very powerful presentation, really. Almost felt, especially, you know, what was presented by him, almost felt like another keynote. I mean, very big, you know, concepts being presented in a way that you just want to keep on listening. I think we need to start a series, a podcast, production. Sindio? This is a responsibility between Professor Ogendo, Professor Kimurto, the assistants of Professor Ilieva, and the likes of me at the department. I think we need to nurture this talent. Sindio? Because it's already here, and there's a lot of it. Thank you so much, guys. The only thing I forgot to tell you is that there's a way we appreciate spoken artists. So what just do the last one, and then you know this is how they are usually appreciated. Eh? So just do a line, and then we appreciate you like this. Let's start.
I remember of the sweet old days when young boys would chase after butterflies, and like nowadays, butterflies are in their stomach as they enter the exam rooms. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, guys. We wish you all the best in your endeavors, your academic endeavors. Asante sana. And now, you can now join us so that we finish together and we go for lunch. You know, I used to belong to this school, and one day we recorded a film here at the university. You know what it entailed? It had a scene that entailed carrying a casket from the sanatorium. And we were to go and do a burial ceremony at one of the staff quarters in the BH. Then as we were going, we met science students who were just coming from the lab. And they got so scared. First of all, they were very angry that we were conducting a burial for a comrade without having informed them. One. Then they asked us, what exactly are you doing? We told them, wait, you guys are coming from the lab to do experiments. We are also conducting an experiment. This is a true story. The best thing about it is that it was actually under a project that was being run at the research division. It was on epidemiology. Those of us who remember such a project, Professor Ilieva, I'm sure you remember that project. The role I had in that documentary was to lead the pack of professional mourners. And I did the job very well. Very, very well. Anyway, at this point in time, just allow me now to invite Professor Richard Mulwa, our Deputy Vice Chancellor in charge of Administration, Planning, and Development. Oh, okay. So I invite the session coordinator. All right. Sorry for that. I was just religiously following the program. All right. So allow me to now invite Professor Nancy Mungai, our Director Research, perhaps to make a comment, and then thereafter invite the DVC. Asante.
Thank you very much, moderator. And let me also appreciate the creative arts team. They say that the butterflies are in the stomach when they're going for exams. Let me also say the butterflies are also in the conference hall, isn't it? Just before people stand up to address the meeting. So I want to tell the butterflies to be silent for now, and we can transact business. So I appreciate the presence of the DVC, the Principal Town Campus, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. We are coming to the close of this conference, 3-day conference. And we're very excited that we have come this far. And the good book says, better the end of a matter than the beginning, yeah? So I can tell you the butterflies are very silent at this time, not like the first day when we were waiting to see whether everything will roll out as we would have wanted it to roll out in terms of the programming, the people we had invited, whether we were not too sure whether everybody will be here. So we are very happy and excited that we have come this far. And I want to start off by appreciating every single one of you who has participated in this conference, all the way from our chief guest, our keynote speakers, our presenters, our chairs and rapporteurs. I'm not giving a vote of thanks, there'll be somebody to do that, but on my own behalf, and of course, on behalf of the directorate that was involved in coordinating all this, I want to sincerely appreciate each and every one of us who has participated in this conference, both whether virtually or in person. We want to thank you very much. This conference, as we are all aware now, set off with a very interesting theme, research for innovative solutions in the 21st century. And I do hope, even as we were hearing and we were picking the take-home messages from some of our colleagues earlier on, that indeed every one of us has taken a message home on how is it that we can continue to engage research for innovative solutions. One of my take-home message that I would like to share with us was one that was shared this morning about looking at the agricultural food system from what we already know, from a value chain analysis or from a value chain approach, but being comprehensive to make sure that at every node within the value chain that we have been able to address the bottlenecks. Then that way we'll be able to bring lasting solution to the problems that we face. So there were many other take-home messages, and our hope and our aspirations for this conference was that everyone will leave here inspired to go and do something differently. One of my other inspiration at a personal level, and I want to be throwing also to us as a challenge, is looking at how do I plan for the next conference. We're going to be having another biennial conference in another 2 years' time. That will be our 16th edition. And as we plan for this 16th edition, what do I want to see different, and how do I want that conference to be different? And as I was thinking about it, I am committing myself to purpose to present in that conference. And so I'm inviting all of us, colleagues and our students as well, to purpose to present during the next conference. And number two, not just to present, to have taken a due process to make sure that as I present in that conference, I'm seeking to see which is the solution that I'm offering to the people that will be listening to me on, when that time comes. So I want to challenge us that as I thank, of course, many of us who supported our students to come for this conference. We want to sincerely thank all of us, and thank you particularly who supported students. We had very many of our students presenting, but I also want to challenge us as professors, as senior lecturers, as seniors, colleagues, to also purpose to present during the next conference so that we can continue to make this conference what we have purpose to make it as an international conference, which indeed it is. When we set off to do this conference, we set off having received abstracts from colleagues from 8 countries, and I'm sure as we come to the end, we have had participants from even many more countries, and we will be able to give that report in due course. So mine is really to thank all of us for being here and for participating in all the sessions that we had. The conference had 6 sub-themes, and one of the sub-themes that may not have attracted a lot of papers is actually represented by the creative arts that we have just seen in a short while. And maybe the question that we want to ask ourselves, again, what is it that we can do differently next time to make sure that we are able to attract papers within that field? Because I believe when we talk about creative arts, the culture, sociology, issues that touch on us, that there's still a lot and a lot of research that is being done in that area. And so it will be, again, an opportunity to challenge ourselves to see that we bring presentations in that area. Allow me, therefore, to close my remarks as I bring the Deputy Vice Chancellor to say that we truly appreciate the participation of every single one of you, and that we look forward to engaging, even as we have fulfilled our role of disseminating the information that we have disseminated through exhibitions, through the papers that have been presented here, and all the sessions we have had, just to sincerely thank you, and therefore say that it is a great honor that I have worked with the committee that organized this conference Dr. Charibo and the committee. Please receive my sincere gratitude for organizing this conference. I know the many hours you sat to organize the conference, so we are sincerely grateful for that work that you have done so far. So without further ado, it is my singular duty and pleasure to invite the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Professor Richard Mulwa, to make his closing remarks. Welcome.
The Principal, Nakuru City Campus, the Director of Research, colleague professors and lecturers here, guests, students, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I was asking Nancy in the morning whether I need to write a speech, but interestingly, my son had seen that program book, and in the morning at 6, he told me, "You're supposed to write a speech." I said, I usually don't write speeches, but I wrote one, and here it is. It's my great pleasure, actually, this afternoon, to be given this honor to do these closing remarks for this 15th edition of the Egerton University International Conference. Indeed, it was a meeting with some international flavor, and I'm happy to hear from our brothers from Nigeria. You know, the people from that side are very interesting. You heard what he said. We are the same. But in the same breath, he made a distinction that Egerton is so green. I'm happy to hear that comment because it's a result of a lot of hard work that we do. Having sat in some of the sessions and listened to the sharing of some of the good science, I've appreciated the hard work that colleagues and students and even those who have come from outside are presented here. I listened to some very interesting papers yesterday presented by PhD students from Hungary, the University of Debrecen, and it was interesting to see that some of the concerns we hear and have here are also the same concerns that other people elsewhere have, and so it gives us some latitude for partnerships as we think of going forward in these conferences. So as we come to the close of this conference today, I stand here with a profound sense of gratitude and admiration. It's not easy to plan these conferences, and so as Nancy was closing here, we sat here with Ogendo for 6 years, and we understand what it is. At the end of our second term, somebody hinted that we would be given another term. And there was a resounding appreciation of what we had already done. We didn't say no, we appreciated. And so another team came in, and we appreciate that this team has come. But that team came in the midst of an interesting era. We jumped into Corona after one conference was organized by the team. And so in the Corona era, we did an online, fully online conference. And some of us had actually forgotten that Egerton University organizes the international conference. But thank God we are back. And we were back this time with a bang. I admired the outfits of the ladies and the gentlemen. I think that's adding flavor to the conference. Next time, I'll also be gabbed so that I'm not left behind. Now, over the past 3 days, we have witnessed some convergence of minds here from across the globe, as I said, each contributing their unique perspectives and expertise to enrich our collective understanding of issues in the different areas of our research. So in this conference, we have celebrated a lot of diversity. I have seen a lot of collaboration and some interesting and relentless pursuit of knowledge. Climate change is the word now. And I get scared when this gentleman was giving statistics. When they say we are on average at 15 degrees centigrade globally, that's not very interesting. It tells you the Earth is very hot because
7 years ago, we were at around 11 degrees. That's a very drastic change in temperature magnitudes, and we need to get concerned. I don't know, Kenyans have worried this year. It's too hot, isn't it? It's actually the hottest year on record in this country. And we don't know how it will pan out as we go forward. So the people in environmental science, Professor Ogendi and company, you need to make us more worried about these things. But I'm also worried that I'm supposed to eat only 300 grams of meat. Not per day, per week. I come from a clan that is nicknamed meat eaters, you know. Now when you start giving me those prescriptions, I get worried. But on the same breath, we've had here Dr. Kirui telling us enteric methane is our greatest threat. As I was sitting there, I was wondering, enteric methane is naturally emitted, so how do we control it? And my mind rushed to where Kenyans fear most, genetic engineering. For the animal scientists and the microbial geneticists here, could it be the time now to start thinking of engineering bacteria that actually will convert that methane before it is emitted by the animal? I don't know. Those are wild ideas I think about. So let's go and do the genetic sequencing to look for those genes. Nduko, that's a project to write. So the conference dialogue has explored a lot of cutting-edge research. That's what I'm saying. These things, as people were talking, I was picking a lot of things here. Those are innovative ideas, directions for cutting-edge research, and transformative solutions. We did not fear. We are the cause of the problem. And my grandfather told me, if you cause a problem, you must have thought of let's think of the solutions. Now, beyond the exchange of ideas and knowledge, I believe this conference has also reminded us of the importance of communities of practice. I and Kimurto here belong to a very large community of practice. In what? Dryland legume breeding systems. Why dryland? We're already saying the temperatures have. When we came to Egerton as students, it was almost a temperate climate. Today, if you come here, it's a dryland pocket. We need to get concerned. And so we need to start forming communities of practice to address some of these issues. I liked the guy who said sometimes he sees people, you know, our green space is diminishing because we want to walk everywhere. When I went to the office, I looked for the estates manager. I didn't want to forget that idea. I wanted to start putting tags. Where you guys have walked, we say, please walk on the grass. Is that right? Walk on the pavement. But if you want to walk on the grass, Professor Musangi told us, take the pavement, put it on the grass, and walk on it. And that's why that time you wouldn't see these paths everywhere. But now they have developed. I take responsibility for that, and thank you for reminding us that we need to maintain our green spaces. I pray that as we go home, we remain committed to the pursuit of excellence, to pushing the boundaries of what is possible within our space, and also harnessing the power of education and research to better this world. We are being told there were not many papers in one theme, but you've seen the way the gentlemen were talking here. I wish we would capture such knowledge, or we would capture knowledge that way. Some of us are used to writing brief statements, and we don't know how to write a lot. But you know, this guy, if you are writing what they were saying, you would have actually written 4 or 5 pages from each of these young men. Somehow, they expound things beyond how many of these scientists I see here who think straight, and when you divert them, you lose them. I think we need to be trained. We need to sit under Professor Ilieva to be divergent thinkers, not straight jacket thinkers in this case. And so I extend my deepest gratitude to the organizing committee. You guys have done a very good job. The keynotes, I was listening to some of these in the office when I couldn't come on. Very informative keynote speakers came on board. And I was saddened when Gangara was cut short because I was waiting to see the next opportunity cost in agriculture. What is it? If we are importing wheat, did you see to the tune of several billions? Huh? We are also importing maize now to about 2 billion worth. Huh? Rice, we seem to have forgone it a long time ago. But so what do we eat? I saw we are only producing 711,000 tons of cassava. Very little for carbohydrate needs of this country. What really can we do to change the spectrum of our thinking so that we go back to food sufficiency? I was in India one time for a conference, and Kimuruto will tell you this. The Minister for Agriculture for India, when he saw us, he asked where we come from, and we said we come from Kenya. He said, oh, it's that country that has never gotten independence. We asked him, what do you mean? He said, oh, you know, us in India, we say we got independence in 1948. But actually, he told us India became independent in 1972. Reason? That was the year when India produced enough food, and they kept enough food in stores to run them for 5 years, barring any production. And he says, and he told us, the day Kenya will produce food to last you just 3 years, assuming that there is no other production, then you will start telling us you are independent. So ladies and gentlemen, it's not yet Uhuru. So we need to start thinking. This is very interesting, by the way, and most of these countries that make a lot of noise and bully us around, if you look at the back of their minds, they are very food secure. Talk of the United States. You know, we cheat ourselves here that they import. No. Those guys can fight a war for 5 years with no production, and nobody will go hungry in the US. Talk of the UK. There are food reserves to last them 7 to 8 years. I've talked of India. Talk of Israel. You think they are dropping bombs for nothing? They know, even if you close the water, they still eat and fight you. Can Kenya fight anybody and still eat? That's food for thought. So I'm saying this because I'm an agricultural scientist, and it shocks when somebody tells you in your face you're not independent, and you're bragging, mlipata uhuru. Food is what gives us independence, and food security for that matter. And so I want to close by saying that your passion, dedication, and hard work truly made a difference in this conference. For those who are presenters, for those who are keynote speakers, for those who are exhibitors, and of course, the dedicated team of volunteers that helped to ensure people get their way where they're supposed to go. So all those who worked tirelessly in this conference, I give you a thumbs up. As we close the 15th Egerton University International Conference, then let us take with us, as Nancy has said, the spirit of collaboration, the thirst for knowledge should continue, and the determination to make a positive impact in our respective fields and communities. For the engineers in the house, I've seen things that we can start selling tomorrow. So if that forging lab you have is producing those things, let's talk so that we can buy more of that material. We start something. Why am I saying this? We were told money follows, but if it follows the students, it will not be enough. So what else do we do? It should follow our innovations. So if there's an innovation that we can commercialize, that's why we are doing the master plan for commercialization. Please let it come out so that we can follow through in that direction. I thank you all for your participation. And for those who are traveling, I wish you safe travels as you go back home. And please come back again when this conference is called. I therefore wish to declare the 15th Egerton University International Conference officially closed. Thank you, and God bless you.
All right, another round of applause to Professor Mulwa, please. I was waiting for you to behave like Moi would say, sasa nimemaliza kusoma speech. Wacha sasa tuongee ile yangu. Thank you so much, even for your insights. I see you perhaps trying to tell us we could also think about the post-coloniality of climate change, you know. And Professor Mungai, how can we do things differently in the 16th one? Prof, sometimes when I have discussions with you, you usually tell me you are a photographer. Sindio, unaniambanga niko na camera mahali. Sindio, nyingi So in the next one, in the exhibition stands, you and I will lead a team of photographers in exhibiting photos that tell the climate change story. Because in my other life, I am also a photojournalist. Sindio? Aya, wacha tutaona. Anyway, thank you so much. And in the spirit of doing things differently, sometimes we usually fail to appreciate the people who have done certain things. I'm supposed to invite Dr. Mary to come and give us a vote of thanks. But perhaps before we do that, what if we just appreciate this team? They have done a wonderful job, Sindio. They have really done a wonderful, despite the technicalities here and there, lakini it has been really seamless. Let us appreciate them. And I'm going to request that the team, of course led by the Director of Research, to just stand up wherever they are, and we'll do them a standing ovation until the chair comes here. So the chair, if you want us to do the standing ovation for an hour, just do a snail speed to the podium. You are the one who will determine that. So kindly the team, the organizing team for the conference, let's just stand up. All right. And with that then, the chair can start walking to the podium and we clap for them. And yes, that's why I say it's a standing ovation. A standing ovation is usually until the chair gets here.
Thank you very much. You can get seated. I know I'm standing between myself and lunch, and I don't want to take very long time. I want to thank everyone, every person who participated in this conference. I want first to appreciate all the keynote speakers and the panelists who came on board. I know we requested them, we requested their bios, their pictures, and all that. They took a lot of time to prepare their presentations, and we cannot say enough thank you to them. I want to appreciate a special group of people. You may not have seen them here, but they really participated. The reviewers of all the manuscripts and all the abstracts that were presented in this conference. They took their time to read, to critique, and when the revisions were requested, they went back to check and confirm that the revisions have been done. Please feel appreciated by all of us. I want to appreciate the chairs of sessions and rapporteurs. You gave your effort in time, and also you will also take another time to prepare the reports and the minutes, and we really appreciate you now and even the time you will be bringing your reports. I want to appreciate all the participants, the authors, the co-authors, and the presenters. Some have traveled all the way from the different countries. Professor Mungai mentioned 9, but from our list, we see we have 15 countries that have participated in this conference. They belong to 26 organizations, universities, research centers, and all that. They all came to bring their research outputs and their knowledge. I want to appreciate the exhibitors who displayed their products, their technologies, their innovations, and I'm sure some have captured the eye of our DVC and they could be ready for commercialization in the next time. I want you to remember what Professor Njiro told us. One of the innovative ways to get a grant is to make sure you capture the attention of the management or the government so that they give you some money. So those who were that captured the attention of the DVC, make sure you follow him before he forgets so that you can get some funds to continue with your research. I want to appreciate the student volunteers. Where are they? They did not stand when the committee was standing. Led by their chairman, Ogutu, or Mori. I want all of them to stand up. Where are they? There are many. We have 4 from engineering. We have 4 from computer science. We have 2 from environment. I want all of them to just stand and wave. I think some are preparing for the meal still, and others are around. Can we appreciate all of them? They have really done a great job, from procuring the equipment to bringing them to organizing the venue and to doing all those activities. I want to also recognize the School of Performing Arts. You have just tasted a small bit. Yesterday we stayed here until 8 a.m. and that's when 8 p.m. And that's when I knew they are appreciated like this. When a point sinks, you just make sure you notice. And all the international students at Egerton University, they came, they supported us in the networking session and also in during the cocktail session. I want to appreciate our sponsors. Quelib, they have provided live coverage from Tuesday. They have been here since Friday, trying to check where to set up, how to set up the equipment. We really appreciate them. I want to appreciate the ICT team. The ICT came here on Friday. From Friday up to today until tomorrow, they will be here. They set up the network, the internet, and that's why we had a continuous streaming. There was the network, there was no itches, and we really appreciate them. We appreciate NRF, TAGDEV, KEFIS for coming as external exhibitors, Refuture, and Egerton alumni. Any member who is in this hall and has not registered as an alumni of Egerton University should get a challenge, because the little money they get from the alumni, it is the same money they are using to sponsor our activities. We really appreciate them through their chair, Dr. Wamukuru. I want also to appreciate ARC staff. They have hosted us. They have catered for us by providing the meals and also accommodation for the international participants. Feel appreciated, and we are really grateful, and we look forward to having you on board. One takeaway for myself. Yesterday, I gave a lift to a business lady who was in our midst yesterday. I was really surprised to see a business person in a conference. She told me, I came here because I wanted to see what Egerton has for me and my business. And she told me there are 3 takeaways. She got 3 networks from the international participants who have similar projects in DRC Congo, in Gambia, and in another country I forgot. She told me those are the people who will market my products in those countries. You can imagine, if she got that, what did you get as a researcher out of this conference? She also told me, I looked at all the donors who are acknowledged in those presentations, and I have a list of 15 of them, whom I will send my proposal. Today, she's online. She's called Esther. The other name is disappearing. She lives in Pipeline. I dropped her at around 8 p.m. So and she stayed for the cocktail and also for the networking session. Because she knows during the networking session, she will meet people and she will talk to them. So it is a challenge. How many donors did you notice from the acknowledgement lists? Some never even saw any. But it is our challenge in the next presentations. Look out for the donors, look out for the collaborators. Thank you very much. Have a blessed trip back home. And those who are around, let's continue to interact. Asante.
All right. So we have actually come to the end. Dr. Jessica, kindly come forward and pray for us. And after that, we'll have the national anthem. But for me, what can I say? Every event in our lives is a performance. And we are role actors, playing different roles. This performance was well scripted, and I think every one of us did their lines pretty well. So I look forward to seeing you in the 16th performance of the Egerton University Biennial Conference, which will take place in the year of our Lord 2026, right? Okay, to the Christians, Happy Easter next week. To the Muslims, Ramadan Karim. Karim.
I'm near to nature. So thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm a very proud person today because most of the organizers are ladies. So, and we have been upstanding for a lady chair. So let's all be upstanding. Okay, let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, in the name of Jesus, we come before you this time of the day with thanksgiving. Thank you for the gift of life. Thank you for the gift of opportunity. Thank you for giving us these opportunities. My Father, I want to thank you because when we were here on Tuesday, we prayed that you come and stay with us and be with us and guide us. I want to return all the glory and honor to you that we finished our conference, my Father, in your presence. Thank you for all the people who have participated in this. Thank you for the management for supporting the conference in every way. Thank you for the organizers for the conference. Thank you for the participants. Thank you for the people who came all the way from their countries to be with us. Thank you, my Father. We give you all the glory and honor for all the knowledge that we've learned, for all the issues that we've listened to. We are human beings. You put us in this earth because you had a purpose. Now we aired our issues and we are trying to look for solutions. My Father, I know you are in this, and you're going to guide us to even give us solutions to the answers that we were asking ourselves, that we may not have gotten answers in this conference. But we know because we trust in you, you're going to give us answers and solutions. You've put us in this earth, and you have reasons why. And we know you have good plans for us. Thank you, my Father, for this far you've brought us. We want to release ourselves in your presence, that for those who are going to their countries, my Father, you're going to take them safely and let them find their families safe. For those of us who are here in this country, pray that, my Father, you may keep us together as we even do a lot of research and do a lot of work for the goodness of our country and for humanity. As even we break now, we pray that, Lord, even for the lunch that is awaiting us, that, my Father, you may place it so that it may give us good health. We pray all this in the name of Jesus Christ, who is our Lord and Savior. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lunch is for everyone. Karibuni. Ah.